The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
The Dave Hooker Show. A presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Objective insight, expertise, top guests. Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free. Also available on offthehooksports.com.
I compute and obey.
Now to Dave Hooker.
Ready.
Did you get any snow? If you're in Knoxville, I bet you did. And I don't want to hear anybody comparing it to 1993. That was on my birthday. That was 22 inches, and nobody was able to come see me at my dorm at UT. None of my friends from PAL. So don't even compare it to 93. That was a complete shutdown. I always think of the Joker when it snows in Knoxville. And I just want to see everything go crazy. I mean, it's just like, well, the roads are not that bad. I don't know. I'm not giving you a road report. I'm just saying it seems like we all go crazy and send out pictures and everything's crazy and wild and it's some snow and let's get excited. So we can get excited for a fantastic show. We've got a lot going on. Did Nick Saban's retirement ratchet up the pressure on Josh Heupel? Kalen DeBoer, closer to Butch Jones or Nick Saban? This was Caleb's idea. We'll dig into that. Reggie Bush has some things to say about Nick Saban. Also, Tennessee, is there concern that they're good but not great? They're competing for championships, but they're not winning them. So a lot going on as we welcome you to the program. Hit that like and subscribe button. Give us your thoughts on the message board. The poll question is out there, and I'll get to that here momentarily. Caleb, how are you, sir?
Your boy hit an 8-leg parlay for the NFL playoffs this weekend. Yeah, that's right. 8 legs.
What did that pay off?
Right now. I'm sorry?
What did that pay off?
I only dropped 10, so it only got me like 100. It was like an 11-1 odds. But hey, whatever. Still, I did it for fun, and it hit. Now I'm mad. Now, obviously, guys, if you hit one, then you should put your life savings on the next one because obviously it's going to hit again. That's how betting works.
Yes, Rob, my birthday was missed, and congratulations on the parlay. Yeah, and even I was dating this new girl who turned out to be my wife. She couldn't come see me, had a cake for me, and it was a disaster. Luckily, I will say that my roommate was 21. Other than that, there would have been issues. And
when I was in college, we were snowed in for a week because we had about 6 feet of snow. One week, and we were snowed in for a week. The only place that was open was the liquor store, and it was open every day till about 2. So you had to get in the line and get it real quick, and then we all would finish the bottle each night.
I remember trudging through that snow, my calves burning. I thought, what a great calf workout if I ever need one. Just trudge through snow. But we were able to get the beer, so everything was good.
I always forget how Southerners are just so lame when it comes to snow.
We are, but you're a Southerner too. But it also it was the first time they closed down UT. Hey, I could do this day in ball history right now. It was the first time they closed down UT since I believe the 60s. And do you know why? You're a history guy.
Why?
Okay. They shut down schools, so kids went outside and threw snowballs at each other. And and then they started throwing snowballs at trucks. They hit this trucker in the side of the head. The trucker got out and shot one of the students and killed him.
Oh my God, are you serious?
Yes, they didn't close down UT for like 30 years because
maybe don't be throwing snowballs. That's such a oh my gosh, such a privileged, spoiled college kids throwing snowballs at working class people, having to work in the snow. I would have acquitted the trucker if I were on the jury. I'm just gonna say it.
She shot a kid.
If you're a spoiled little mommy and daddy paid for your college kid and you're throwing snowballs at a trucker who has to drive through the snow on a snow day, yeah, you get what's coming to you. Okay, stop hating on the blue collar workers like that.
Wow, that seems strong. So Just shoot random kids is what Caleb's message is for you today. I can't understand it, but that's his thoughts. So there we go. It is time for today's tough question, and we hit it now.
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
Today's tough question brought to you by our friend Andy Mason, and it is this. Quite simply, has the pressure been ratcheted up on Josh Heupel now that Nick Saban is gone and retired? I wrote a column on this. It hasn't gone up quite yet, but it will go on offthehooksports.com here shortly. So we encourage you to check that out. Also, recruiting updates are there frequently, thanks to Caleb Giroux. I think it has significantly, and I'm going to tell you why I think so. But Caleb, what are your thoughts?
Yes, I think it has. Now, it hasn't as significantly as it would if Kirby Smart left. That would have been the peak pressure. And so I'm holding back a little bit on this because, as we've talked about, Tennessee and Alabama don't always have the same recruiting fights. But next year is the first year, guys, since I've been covering Tennessee, next year's the first year that they're going into the season not just automatically considering themselves 0-1 because they have to play Alabama. And that's huge. Sorry.
Right. And in my column, I pointed out really 0-2 with Georgia and Alabama. You're going to be double-digit underdogs. It's not to say they're going to lose that game. Obviously, they beat Alabama just a couple years ago, but that would be the norm. You would go into a season as a touchdown or double-digit underdog to two teams. Okay, but that's a lot to overcome from the get.
It is, particularly when you're trying to rebuild a program. Now, Tennessee's not rebuilding anymore. If you're Josh Heupel in your fourth year, you hope Tennessee has arrived. But it was still, we all knew Georgia and Alabama were still, I think you and I both talked, like, I've been very high on Tennessee for 2024, but I felt that even if Josh Heupel was going to succeed at Tennessee, from a talent perspective, I always thought as long as Nick Saban was at Alabama and Kirby Smart was at Georgia, from a talent perspective, they'd always be in a separate class, even if Tennessee could beat them. Right? You thought the same thing, right? That even if Tennessee maybe had an undefeated year, snuck into a national title, like, if you look at NFL draft picks over the next 5 years, Tennessee's never going to have more draft picks than Georgia. That's just not going to happen with Kirby Smart at Georgia. And you felt the same was true at Alabama. So the hope was that you had enough talent to be able to upset them, but it was still going to be an upset. Now, with Alabama, at least, them going to Knoxville, all the transfer news, Nick Saban no longer there. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if Tennessee was favored next year against Alabama at home, which is crazy to think about because they haven't been favored over Alabama since 2007.
Yeah, I think it depends who they lose in the portal, right? So we'll wait and see on that. But no, it wouldn't surprise me if they were favored. Again, that roster is in so much flux right now with Saban stepping out and guys curious. I mean, here's what changes, and it's partly Saban, it's partly the playoff. Tennessee never has to beat Georgia to be one of the preeminent college football programs in the nation. They can lose to Georgia, win 10 games, make the college football playoff year in and year out, and then we'll see if the chips fall where they may. I believe that Josh Heupel's offense will be tough to deal with in a playoff situation on a week-to-week basis. So I think that gives Tennessee somewhat of an advantage. So I'll get to the question. It's on YouTube. We'd like to hear your vote. Today's tough question brought to you by Andy Mason Real Estate, AndyMasonRealEstate.com. Real estate experts with over 4 decades combined experience in East Tennessee, best prices, best service in the Knoxville area. Pretty awesome. You can't beat that. All right. So I go to our YouTube page, and if you want to go on there, we would love to see your vote, as today it is this, and I have not even asked for Caleb's input yet, but as I pull it up, today's tough question is this: with Saban gone, Tennessee should win a national title in blank. I've got 2024. I've got within 3 years, within 5 years, and then who knows? What do you think's leading at this point?
I'm going to say within 3 years is leading.
It is significantly 69% of the vote. 2024, 6%. Within 5 years, 6%. And who knows, within 19%. I guess that's still those Tennessee fans that are still unsure about the program under Josh Heupel. I understand. Give him time. But you're right. Kirby Smart would have been a more significant retirement or leaving his school than Saban because of the recruiting area that they overlap in often. However, if I'm Tennessee, I'm going to start to focus on Alabama a little bit. Tennessee did have a guy named T. Martin that won a national championship from Mobile. Tennessee has the ability now to take kind of a sidetrack, an easier path to becoming a national power with Saban gone. You want to beat Georgia. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying just it's okay to lose to Georgia each and every year, but it's way different to me with the college football playoff. Now, let's look at when Tennessee was in their heyday, okay? Who was Philip Fulmer coaching against? I mean, my goodness. You had Brad Scott, Lou Holtz, South Carolina. You had Drunken Ray Goff and Jim Donnan at Georgia. And you had Steve Spurrier at Florida. And whoever Kentucky and Vanderbilt trotted out there. But it was just a two-team playoff. It was one game. So if you lose to Florida, Katie bar the door, there goes the season. It should never, ever be like that again for Tennessee. They should never, ever, ever have that mindset. It changes the way you look at college football. And it's going to be weird year number one. But there's no team out there other than Georgia that you would go into a season saying it's going to be an upset, a significant upset if Tennessee beats them. And we don't know how long Kirby Smart will keep it rolling. Historically, you would say not as long as Nick Saban, who's one of the greatest coaches ever. Maybe he's a great coach for 6, 7, 8 years and does something else or something crazy happens. That happens. But it's just monstrous for Tennessee. And I think it does give Tennessee fans reason to add a little bit more pressure to Josh Heupel.
The crazy thing about Kirby Smart is that he was actually 6 years younger than Nick Saban when he won his first national title. Than Nick Saban was when Saban won his first national title. And from what we understand, Kirby Smart has no desire to leave Georgia. Now that could change, but it seems like he wants to do this thing for a long time. And so, because Dave, I think you covered Saban when he was if Saban hadn't left LSU, he'd have done at LSU what he did at Alabama, right? Like he probably might have another national championship.
Oh yeah, no, I think he would have done the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. So Kirby Smart could do that and surpass Saban. Now, you are right. It is scary and things are clearing out. And I want to give a quick history lesson because you bring up Philip Fulmer. One of the reasons everybody at Tennessee knew it was over for Butch Jones was in 2016 when Tennessee was favored to win the East. That was when Georgia made the transition from Mark Richt to Kirby Smart. South Carolina had moved on from Steve Spurrier. Florida had had Jim McElwain as head coach. So everybody in Tennessee had everybody back. So you're thinking at Tennessee, if Butch Jones can't win the East this year, he's never winning the East, ever. And of course, he didn't win the East. He finished second to Florida, and then he made his cringe champions of life comments. And I think at that, we all knew that 2017 was over because everybody saw what Georgia was about to become. And so that was it. So you are right. You got to cash in. It's twofold. The SEC is a little bit easier, and there's a 12-team playoff. Now, I wanted to stick with this for a minute, Dave. On a national scale, Jim Harbaugh just interviewed with the Chargers. But by the way, the Chargers tweeted that he interviewed, which means Jim Harbaugh's gone, right? The fact that the Chargers tweeted that they interviewed him means he's gone.
Yes.
And yeah. Does it put even more pressure on Josh Heupel on a national scale when programs like Michigan lose a coach like that? Now with the college football playoff and college football becoming more national with the 12-team playoff.
Yeah, but don't you think the next great coach is going to emerge? I mean, I think Harbaugh is fantastic. It took Harbaugh a long time to build them up, though, to a championship level. So, yeah, I think it helps. So the more great coaches that go to the NFL, it helps Tennessee for the elite programs, especially when they get in the playoff. The question is Tennessee a team that gets in the playoff? Because I think they're going to be an annual playoff participant. I think they're going to be in 3 out of 4 years. I think the question is, does Tennessee advance? And at some point, if you don't, you have Rick Barnes like questions. But certainly, I think Harbaugh moving on to the NFL would be great for any program that wants to win a championship.
I agree. It'd be great for any program, and Ryan Day would be so grateful at that point too. But I think this is. But actually, I want to bring that up. I think the reason I bring that up is Jim Harbaugh. You know the fights he had with Nick Saban over satellite camps. You know Jim Harbaugh's skirted every rule he could to recruit in the South, basically, and it's kind of worked in his favor. And I don't know if other coaches could do that. We know that Ryan, as long as Ohio State sticks with Ryan Day, I got to say, however people feel about Ryan Day, it's very clear, isn't it, that the magic is wearing off and that the tide and the public sentiment is turning on him. And you know this, Dave, you covered Philip Fulmer. The minute a slither of public sentiment turns on you, it wrecks you on the recruiting trail, doesn't it? Because that narrative is out there.
No, and I think the narrative, is out there for Alabama, which is why I would focus on recruiting the state of Alabama, which is better than it was back in the day. The narrative is Nick Saban's gone. I grew up watching Nick Saban. I remember I was 5 years old. I'm a high school prospect, and I watched Nick Saban, and now he's gone. I think that's where that narrative play out as well.
I agree, and that's where I was going. Was Tennessee borders Alabama. And honestly, Knoxville is about a 3-hour drive from Cincinnati. You think if Ryan Day stays unpopular, Tennessee could have a North Alabama, Southern Ohio pipeline, both of those areas?
Possibly. I think first and foremost, it gives Tennessee a chance to lock down. There's an area in South Mid Tennessee that is pocketed by a bunch of Alabama fans. And when I say Alabama fans, I'm not talking about guys that put the flags up. I'm talking about the high school coaches. I'm talking about there's some boosters there. I'm talking about guys who actually influence recruiting. So there are a lot there. I think you can reclaim that right now. You better.
You could, and guys,
right now.
And for our listeners who don't know, for who don't study history, ask Philip Fulmer. This goes back to the 60s, how many ties that Alabama area has to Southern Tennessee, because Philip Fulmer was very close to choosing to go play for Alabama. And Doug Dickey was the one who swung it for him. And he just wanted to play for Doug Dickey. But yeah, that's you're right. That area is deep. And honestly, I'm not so sure Johnny Majors, who is also from that area, I'm not so sure he doesn't go to Alabama if they're not really, really bad when he commits to Tennessee in 1952. And so this is a very long-standing tradition. That area, even though it's in state, has been hard for Tennessee to lock off. And they sneak in some very elite talent every few years. Boo Carter's from that. I mean, we're basically just talking the Chattanooga area. Let's call it what it is. And Boo Carter is there. They lost Amari Jefferson to Alabama this past year. And you're right. And North Alabama has some of the best high school coaches in the country. I think I've told you guys Hoover High School was on MTV in 2004 for what they do. So if in
Barry
North
Pruitt
Alabama
was on that, wasn't he?
He didn't know what asparagus was. They poured asparagus on his plate. And he's like, "What's that? I ain't never heard of that." So, yeah. So, but for those who don't know, North Alabama, I think Tennessee has a stronger pipe, because here's the big competition if Alabama falls to the wayside. It's Auburn, obviously, but Tennessee has a stronger pipeline into North Alabama than I think Auburn does. For those who don't know, North Alabama people are very they find South Alabama just an unlivable place, and so they don't want to go to Auburn. And they're partially right. I find North Alabama unlivable, but I also find Auburn unlivable. So it's
Man, you're just hardcore on some areas of the country. All right, the question I have with Kalen DeBoer being hired, and blame Caleb for this because he brought it up. He said Kalen DeBoer, his IQ is closer to Butch Jones or Nick Saban. I don't know about IQ, but I did dive into it last night, and I have to say that he's closer to Butch Jones barely. And here's why. I think he is a guy that has an offensive system that's good but not great. I think that he's not an incredibly innovative thinker by any stretch of the imagination. As far as recruiting, which Butch Jones would oftentimes inflate his numbers by calling recruiting services, and having them change their recruiting ranking. Yeah, I don't see that Kalen DeBoer is a fantastic recruiter. I think Washington was in the 40s for 2024. I think they were 41.
Yeah, but I'm not going to hold that against him because recruiting is so much. It's so much more about the program you're at than about the actual coaching the actual recruiting you yourself do. I'm just going to point that out. Like,
well, that's fine, and player development's something too. But again, I don't see him as an elite recruiter. He was 26th for the 2023 class. So, yeah, I think that if I had to pick, I don't know IQ. You can go that route if you want to, but I'm going to go along the lines of as a coach, I think he's closer. I've just changed my mind. He's closer to Nick Saban. He played for a championship. I mean, come on. Butch Jones was never, ever, ever going to play for a national title. Yeah.
So Kalen DeBoer,
give me a clearer look at that. Brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Haun. Enjoy life better when you see better. Local vision service for LASIK, cataract surgery, and regular eye examination. ccteyes.com, ccteyes.com. So I'm going closer to Saban. I just talked myself out of it.
I don't know why you're so disrespectful of Butch Jones. He won a national title as an analyst at Alabama.
My bad. Did he get a ring for that?
Yes. No, the most humiliating was in 2018 after he got fired by Tennessee and he was an analyst at Alabama and Alabama blows out Tennessee. They gave him a cigar and it's like, dude, you're smoking a cigar for blowing out a Tennessee team that you're responsible for putting together, bro. But yeah, he did that. Look, he's not as thin-skinned as Butch Jones, okay? He's not going to be as annoying in press conferences and as thin-skinned as Butch Jones. But there are in-game basic mistakes, having watched some Kalen DeBoer this year, and after I finally watched Washington on a national scale in the playoffs, there were some in-game basic mistakes that are very, shall we say, Butch Jones-esque. They're very Mario Cristobal-esque. Could I go Mario Cristobal for IQ? Or is Mario Cristobal on Butch Jones' level of IQ too? They're about the same IQ.
I don't know. I actually was high on Cristobal for a while, and I'm not now. Over the past 3 years, I've changed my thoughts on that.
Okay, so when I watch Kalen DeBoer against Texas, there was sometimes one play. You say that all the time, the Joe Milton running out of bounds play. When Kalen DeBoer ran a play that allowed Texas a chance to get back into the game rather than run out the clock, I have to be honest with you, Dave. Yeah, that very much made me think that this dude ain't the brightest bulb in the box. And how do you make that decision when you've already seen Mario Cristobal lose a game doing it?
Yeah,
in the year.
We are talking relative. But just in, a lot of college football coaches aren't brainiacs, okay? But I do think Nick Saban was one of the smarter ones. So I would have the fact that he, even though I think so highly of Nick Saban, I would have Kalen DeBoer closer to Saban than Butch Jones. I also don't know his sociopathic tendencies, so that's a whole nother question for another
He's
day.
above Butch Jones, clearly. That part's clear. So, like, yeah,
Yes.
I'm not going to say he's yeah. So I don't think he's a sociopath.
Just closer to is what you're
yes.
pointing at.
Like, if Saban's, like, up here, the standard of genius, and, like, Butch Jones is, like, way, way, way down below, it's like, okay, if Kalen DeBoer... Because I do think, you're right, I think, as little as I think of college coaches and their intellect, I actually think Nick Saban is a really, really, really smart person. I don't know if you agree, but I actually think he's, like... I think he's in, like, the top 1% of intelligence in the country, honestly.
I think he's very bright. He loved football. Had he loved, I don't know, aerospace engineering, he would have been good at that. Smoky Mountain Red Post, major shift coming for Alabama fans. Lose a legend, and the DeBoer is basically bringing in a whole new staff. The DeBoer, I like that. He's the DeBoering. This may be a topic for another day, but what's more difficult to overcome? What Tennessee went through with Jeremy Pruitt and NCAA issues, or losing a legend like Nick Saban?
I don't think it's difficult to overcome losing a legend. I genuinely think that's overrated.
Wow.
I want to be honest with you.
100% disagree, but go ahead.
Yeah, I think the Jeremy Pruitt stuff and what he inherited, and what Josh Heupel inherited is much more difficult. Now, I think Alabama is a more difficult job right now than Tennessee was in 2021, but not because you're replacing a legend at Alabama, because Alabama doesn't have the infrastructure to be great right now, guys. They don't have a top 20 NIL collective. Their boosters are cheap, and their boosters are dumb enough to think that they can still win just by being Alabama. They genuinely think, I'm telling you guys this, and you will see it. They delusionally think players are going to take a NIL discount to play for Alabama. The boosters actually think that.
Yeah, that's not going to happen anymore. Those days are over. No question about it.
It is.
Okay,
and
so for tomorrow,
that.
let's do this. For tomorrow, I want to get into the discussion what is more difficult to overcome, the Pruitt scenario or losing a legend. Can we do that? Because you and I legitimately, genuinely, completely 100% disagree on this. So I'm excited for this.
All right, that's fine.
But I want to do my research because, especially on Tuesdays, because when you wear the sport coat, you scare me. You look smarter. You look smarter than DeBoer.
I wear a sport coat on Wednesday too, bro. So you're still going to be scared. You're talking to an 8-leg parlay winner over the weekend. You sure you want to debate me? But yeah, I think let's. Okay.
You think what? Go ahead.
I didn't say Saban was the first to bring in analysts. Saban was the first to realize that you could.
Well, no. I've said that. Yeah, I was just going to address that. Go ahead and finish your thought, and then I'll address this comment real quick. What were you talking about?
Oh no, I was just trolling about how smart I am. So you can go ahead and
there you go.
The comment.
Caleb mentioned Saban was the first to bring analysts to college football. Does Tennessee use a lot of analysts as well? They use quite a few. Saban was the first. There are quite a few programs, all of them now, that use several analysts. I think that Tennessee has roughly 6 or 8. Oftentimes, the reasoning behind analysts and going to get those guys is to have extra coaches on the field. Now, that's an NCAA violation, and you could get busted for that. But that's the same reason that Nick Saban made attending practice a non-issue, because he closed practice. So you could basically go out there and see him stretch, and then that's all you could see. And then the analyst would run out there. Tennessee has done that in the past, and that is an NCAA violation. It was under a previous coach. I don't know if they do that now, but a lot of people do. So as soon as they close practice, the NCAA only allows you a certain number of coaches on the field, and Nick Saban found the loophole around that, and that was to hire them as analysts. And if you think about it, it was one of the smartest things ever done in Nick Saban's career, and one of the smartest things in football, even though it's cheating, is because you have how many players on an NFL team? 45?
53.
Is that the roster? 53. So you have 53, and you have literally 20 coaches. I mean, one for 2 dudes. You got 100 guys if you include the walk-ons in college football, and you're allowed 9 coaches on the field. I mean, that's pretty insane.
Yeah, it's funny because I just, on a side note, because he's talking about the video I did on Sunday of what made Nick Saban so great. The two most genius things Saban did to make him great, Dave, both came from his experience in the NFL. Because one was, he learned about the analyst thing when he was with the Dolphins. That's what he kind of learned. That's where he learned about the analysts. Because as you know, NFL teams have so many analysts on top of all the coaches they have. And so he realized he could do that for college if he was smart about how to approach it. But the pattern matching, which you explained to me on coaching defensive backs, which for those who don't know, pattern matching is you play man, but then you play zone when the play starts, but once the receiver breaks, you switch to man once he breaks on his route. Saban came up with that because the Steelers used to run 4 verticals with Neil O'Donnell back in the early 90s, and the cover 2 wasn't enough to contain that. And so, yeah, that's by the way, the pattern matching is why the Patriots used to shut down Peyton Manning in the early 2000s, because Bill Belichick figured it out while working with Saban.
Good stuff. You need to check out those videos. They're fantastic. So what do we have up right now that people can check out and learn a little bit about some Tennessee SEC history? Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Turn your notifications on so that you know that you're getting the very latest. Caleb's putting out some great stuff. So what do we have out there now that people need to check out?
Yeah, so Nick Saban right now, what we have out right now is that I might just blank a little bit. It's what made Nick Saban such a great coach. And it's a combination of him figuring things out like analyst and pattern matching. Also, his organizational skills, him being uniquely qualified to run the offense and coach defense. But also, look, there's a little bit of timing and luck involved too. He took the LSU job at the right time, and there's no debate. As far as
Jason calling you out, by the way, saying 18 parlay should be around 150 to 1. So what's wrong with you?
Jason, the trick on the 18 parlay, the trick on parlays when you do giant legs like that is you do alternate spreads that are much more likely to hit. But if you do a bunch of them, you still get a pretty big payout.
My gosh, you start talking gambling and my eyes glaze over.
But
I'll tell you what.
I will say,
okay, go ahead.
I think that Kalen DeBoer is closer to Butch Jones in trying to figure out that math, though, because he doesn't know that you should take a knee when you have the lead in the ball.
I don't know that I could figure out that math, and I've had my IQ tested. I know what it is. It's not bad. I don't know that I could do that. Some of the gambling stuff confuses me. My brain just doesn't work like that. I'll tell you.
But Dave tried to give Kalen DeBoer credit for playing for a national title. Do we have to go down the list of coaches who have won national titles in college, Dave? You know, there's this guy at Miami in 2001 that I might just leave him alone. But you know, you and I could have won. I'm sorry.
He had a pretty good group. I'd say they've got a fantastic group at Rick Terry Jewelry Design. They want to be your jeweler looking for affordable game day jewelry. How about the Fire Opals, a Tennessee tradition? RickTerryJewelry.com. That is RickTerryJewelry.com. And this coming up is just an absolute dig by Caleb because he knows I'm a Cowboys fan. I even cleaned out the closet, and I had an autographed Des Bryant jersey that my wife wore on Sunday. We were so excited and cooked food and everything, and the Cowboys lost. Tennessee is also competing for a lot of things, and there's a comparison that Caleb made, both to irritate me and to inform you. 2 minutes, he's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, Off the Hook Sports.
Sun, sand, and salt water, the beach is a very relaxing place. Unless you wear contacts. Ow! Open your eyes to the best the beach has to offer with LASIK vision correction from Campbell Cunningham Laser Center.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Have you seen the latest TriStar Hats Co. product?
TriStar Hats Co.? What's that?
You know, those really cool hats, shirts, tumblers, and even license plates with 3 stars like the official Tennessee flag and stripes like the American flag. Pretty patriotic if you ask me.
Gotcha. Seen those. Those are cool. Where can I get them?
Simple. TriStarHatsCo.com. And if you order now, there's 10% on any order $50 or more. Plus, use the promo code HOOKED.
With the promo code HOOKED, you get 10% off. That's hooked.
And don't forget free shipping with any order over $50. Stock up at TriStarHatsCo.com. That's TriStarHatsCo.com. There are plenty of wannabes out there, so make sure you go to TriStarHatsCo.com for the best quality and customer service.
Will do, and I'll be sure to use the promo code HOOKED. That's hooked when I do to save an additional 10% off. TriStarHatsCo.com.
TriStar Hats Co. is a trademark of TriStar Hats Co. LLC. Any use without express written consent is prohibited.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, wizard.
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports,
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
Welcome back. Hit that like and subscribe button for me, please. I greatly appreciate it. And we'll have this day in Tennessee football history coming up momentarily. So we can talk about this day in my Tennessee sports history when I had a walk up and down the strip trying to get a 12-pack because it was my birthday in 1993 and it snowed 2 feet, and people are trying to compare it to this. This ain't close, people.
You weren't even
Close.
wait, you are Butch Jones with your efficiency. Why are you just getting a 12-pack? One trek to the store, you need to get a handle.
Because
That
my
lasts
mom
you
watches
longer.
the show. Yeah, because my mom watches the show. That's the reason. All right,
Oh,
so
so a 12-pack is better? Way more
yeah, I think
calories.
2 12-packs technically is better than a case. I don't know how that works out. Okay, so the Dallas Cowboys lose, and they haven't won anything in a long time. Tennessee is 5th in the Directors' Cup standings, number 1 in the SEC, which I think significant, should be celebrated. It will keep Danny White his job for a long, long time. However, is that good enough? 4 downs now, brought to you by Dynasty Pools and Spas.
4 downs. 4 questions. 4 answers. The Dave Hooker Show.
4
Downs. A presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
Yeah, first of all, I think you should celebrate being first in the SEC in the Directors' Cup, which takes into account, or in the standings, which takes into account all sports. You're probably never going to beat the West Coast schools because they have more sports like water polo and stuff like that they do. But that's not what really matters. Let's face it. I mean, it's revenue sports. It's men's basketball and it's football. I mean, that's what it is. But I think you should take pride in the Directors' Cup. I think that there are a couple of reasons why. I'm going to get to it now as we will get to first down. First, though, Coop, what should people do?
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
Coop told you to do it, so you better do it.
Coop here. First down.
All right. So how much does the success of other sports help Tennessee football? How much does it help? A lot? A little? Not much at all? Caleb?
I honestly don't think much at all. No, I think it would have used to help back in the day when Tennessee stood alone as like a Lady Vols program, and so they stood out over everybody. But let's not forget that when Tennessee was at its peak in the 90s, basketball was the most forgettable thing out there. No one cared at all, and they were still getting number 1 recruiting classes. So against that backdrop, it's really hard for me to say that the success of other sports matters too much.
I don't think it really matters at all anymore. And you're talking to somebody who has pointed out that Terry Fair came to Tennessee because he saw the Lady Vols on TV. But who just flips around the TV anymore? You know what you want to watch. You turn the TV on. You turn the YouTube on. Hopefully you watch this show. Hopefully you hit like and subscribe. But you don't just flip around anymore and happen to stumble across a women's basketball game and be introduced to the University of Tennessee. I mean, that's just not how things work. If you're a football guy, you're a football guy. Even YouTube and the different social media will start feeding you that based off their algorithm. So I don't think it's nearly as significant. Would it hurt if Tennessee won a national championship in basketball on a Monday night and everybody saw it? It wouldn't hurt, but I don't know that anybody says, I'd never heard about Tennessee before. I live in Phoenix, Arizona, like Terry Fair did, and I want to go to Tennessee because they have a great athletic department through and through. I don't think it's that significant of a factor. Now, I would have argued that 20 years ago, but 30 years ago, I would argue that being on television matters a lot. Well, every game's on television now. All right, so second down, Coop.
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
Does the Directors' Cup really matter to you as fans? And I want some feedback on the message board, so I'm going to leave this one open for a while. I mean, having the number 1 athletic department, does that mean anything to you? Caleb, should it mean something to Tennessee fans? I mean, to me, it's kind of cool, but it's not anywhere close to a championship. And I would include women's basketball, even though it's non-revenue, men's basketball or football. I'd rather have a championship in one of those than win the Directors' Cup. You?
Totally agree. Even baseball. Any of those 4 sports,
Okay, baseball. I forgot about baseball.
I would even consider I'd rather win a softball championship than finish one in the Directors' Cup standings. I'm just going to be honest with you.
Would you rather finish second in the Directors' Cup and first winning a softball championship? I'll agree with that too.
Yeah, I think it's more important to win championships always. I'll just to break this down. The Atlanta Braves set the record of 16 straight division titles. They got 1 World Series. The Marlins haven't won 1 division title, but they got 2 World Series during the Braves run. Who would you say had a more successful run, Dave? The Marlins or the Braves?
Well, I mean,
it's the Marlins.
I know, but the Braves were really elite for like a decade.
And they got 1 World Series out of it, and the Marlins went to the playoffs twice. And they got 2 World Series out of going to the playoffs twice.
So Travis is on the other side of us. He says any publicity is good publicity. If the nation is talking about you, it has to be a good thing. And then he also said that he wants to win at everything. The Director's Cup, Rob asking, sorry, what is the Director's Cup? That's a culmination. Kind of answers your question. It's a culmination of how all the sports have done, and it evaluates the athletic department in each and every sport. Tennessee has done.
And so this is for fall sports. We have to be clear. This is for fall sports that they're 5th, not overall for the year.
Exactly. And so it comes out in late June, typically for the entire year. What down is it, Coop?
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. 3rd down.
Okay. Would basketball completely remedy this? Would you if Tennessee won a national championship, would it take pressure off the rest of the sports? And in turn, would it take pressure off Josh Heupel in football? I got an interesting take on this. I want to get yours first. It's brought to you by Dynasty Pools and Spas. Dynasty Pools and Spas is in Athens. Their showroom is unbelievable, and they deliver to Knoxville or Chattanooga. Complete support, spa cover, and chemicals to keep your spa bubbling at its best. Dynasty Pools and Spas. Go to dynastypoolsandspas.com and you can order your pool and your spa chemicals right there. And they're the best in the biz. Mention Off the Hook Sports. Get a $500 discount on any spa. That's pretty awesome. A $500 discount Off the Hook Sports. Would basketball remedy all this? Yay or nay?
It would not remedy all of this, but it would put Tennessee athletics in a very rare category, which is to be a school that won a national championship in football, men's basketball, and women's basketball. And I think they'd be the only one to have done it in the modern era of college sports. When I say modern era, for those who don't know, I'm saying when after every school has integrated. So roughly 1970, 1971 on, which is basically when Title IX started anyway. It would put, I think, if Tennessee were to do that, that would be a very, very rare accomplishment. But no, it would not take pressure off Josh Heupel because football still matters more than everything else by a long shot.
I think it would, and I think it's a cautionary tale. Here, I think, is the worst case scenario with this 12-team playoff and Tennessee having a solid coach at the helm. I think that the worst case scenario is they're a program in football that they make the college football playoff every year, but their talent isn't quite of the ilk as a Georgia, and they get bounced out. I would have said Alabama previously, but now that's completely changed with Saban. So that's what you don't want to be. You're kind of like that NFL team that is 9-7. You don't get a great draft pick necessarily, but you also don't advance in the playoffs. You're just good enough where you don't make any sort of significant change. That, to me, is the scariest scenario for Tennessee fans. And I would certainly watch out for that in the coming years. That being said, is anybody going to be upset if Tennessee makes, in the next 5 years, they make the playoffs 4 times, and let's say they make the Final Four twice? No, people are still going to say that Josh Heupel is successful, but you're kind of in a situation there where you don't want to make a change, but you don't know if he can advance past the elite coaches in the playoffs. I think that's the scariest thing. All right.
Well, there's just to add to it. See, I'm starting to think it would put more pressure on Josh Heupel because the last thing Josh Heupel wants to hear, the last thing he wants to hear is that Tennessee is now a basketball school. And you know, I mean, and Dave, didn't you cover the men's teams in the 90s where how many of them made the excuse that Tennessee men couldn't be good because women's basketball cast too big of a shadow? It was the dumbest excuse.
I think Pat Summitt clearly put pressure on Philip Fulmer during that time. There's no question in my mind. And it wasn't her fault. She didn't do anything wrong. I mean, she won championships, and even Steve Spurrier would make references to Pat Summitt. You know, oh, they got a championship coach up there in Knoxville.
But beyond, I wasn't even talking about Fulmer. Didn't Jerry Green and Kevin O'Neill both complain about the shadow of women's basketball over the men's team and try to pretend that made it difficult for them to coach?
O'Neill's a little bit before my time. I don't remember Green doing that. I don't remember Green doing that. But could have been. Listen, it put pressure on everybody. I mean, it put pressure on the crew team.
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. 4th down.
All right. So what does football have to do to make this a good thing? Being number one in the Directors' Cup. Continue to be relevant as they are? Or do they eventually have to advance far into the playoffs or even win a championship for people to get excited about the Directors' Cup? I mean, we just had somebody ask, what is the Directors' Cup? So your thoughts on that. And lastly, I'll let you compare the Dallas Cowboys to the Vols. But what would football have to do to remedy all of this talk about, number one Directors' Cup, but not in your biggest sport?
Football, no, they just have to win a national title. I mean, it's really that simple. Quite honestly,
is it play? It's not even play for one in the in the championship game.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you a question. There are two Tennessee students. One was a freshman in 95 and graduated in 99. The other was a freshman in 99 and graduated in 03. The other saw more basketball success, and the other saw more success in football and basketball combined together. You'd still rather be the freshman in 95. You still would rather just take that football run, wouldn't you?
Well, I would think so. I would rather take that run. It's kind of similar to that Braves question, isn't it? A little bit.
Somewhat. It's just football overwhelms every other sport to it. I mean, I don't look. Luckily, by the way, it's not the best comparison because Tennessee was actually good in basketball in 98, 99. That was during the Tony Harris, CJ Black, Vincent Yarbrough years. So like they actually finished in the top 25 that year. So they were a good team. And they had won the national title in women's basketball with the greatest team ever in 97, 98. So they had a lot to be, things were rolling at a really high level at that. There was like a 3-year run, as you know, Dave, that everything was rolling. Men's, women's basketball, football, and even baseball made the College World Series with Chris Burke in 2001, if I remember correctly. So there were some things rolling for Tennessee, but everybody remembers the football team. And the fact of the matter is football carries the weight for this sport. And so I think they just have to win a national championship in football. I think if you don't win it in football, Tennessee is one of those schools. And I'm not saying this is fair, but you look back at an era with a bit of an asterisk if there's not a national championship in that era, don't you? Like you look at the Johnny Majors era, you respect him a lot, but you're like, yeah, but he never won a national title at Tennessee.
Yes. And I mean, one makes a huge difference on your resume. 2 makes a huge monstrous difference on your resume. I love that the conspiracy theory that Caleb started weeks ago about Connor Stallions perhaps providing information to South Carolina and helping South Carolina in 2022 beat Tennessee has legs, because Travis is referencing it on the message board as well. We don't know that for sure, but I love that conspiracy theory has legs thanks to Caleb Calhoun. And just by the way, okay, you can take your Cowboy shot if you want to, but they still have won, just for the record, 3 Super Bowls in the past 30 years.
No, they won 1 Super Bowl in the past 30 years. They won 3 Super Bowls in the past 34 years.
Oh my gosh, I'm getting old. All right. Yes, 3 Super Bowls in the past 34 years. I did my math incorrectly. So if you want to rip on them, you can. But are you telling me, let me ask the message board this, would you take 3 national championships in the next 34 years? You don't know when they're going to be, but would you take them? So take that, Caleb. What have your Titans done, by the way? Nothing.
My Titans aren't even knocking on the door all the time. This is the problem with Tennessee.
Titans just build new stadiums. That's all they do.
They do. But that Nissan Stadium has always been terrible, though. So they needed one. But Tennessee, this is the point, though. The Cowboys keep knocking on the door, leading you to believe that they're going to. You thought this was the year, Dave, didn't you?
No, I haven't thought it's the year in over a decade. I've expected this, not in the fashion that it happened on Sunday, but I've expected this.
Okay, so the reason I keep bringing this up is, yes, they have won 3 titles in the past 34 years. If you want to go there,
it's not bad. It's better than a lot of programs.
Tennessee claimed 6 titles over the past 90 years. Did you know that? They claimed 6 over the past
32 years. It was 92, but anyway.
Okay, well, Tennessee claimed 6 titles over the past 87 years, but they have one that should really count over the past 58. They claimed the 1967 title. Guys, shameless plug. I've got a video coming on the most absurd national title claims. Tennessee claiming the 67 title is on there. Tennessee should be ashamed of itself for claiming that title. They were not the best team in college football and that year. That's embarrassing. But all I'm saying is this. They are constantly knocking on the door. John Adams, we had him last week talking about knocking on the door coaches. Tennessee, until that national title in 98, didn't you consider them like what you consider the Cowboys now? Because didn't they have a long period of just constantly knocking on the door before they broke it down in 98?
Well, fair enough. Portions of the program brought to you by Tennessee Cider Company, the original hard cider of the Smoky Mountains. Use the promo code HAT, that's HAT, to receive some free swag on your cider order, available most anywhere in the U.S. So I think I've said before, frequently, please hit that like and subscribe button. But I think I've said frequently that Caleb can be a little crazy at times. And he can bring up some things out of left field that they hit me, and I'm like, I don't think that works. And then he comes up with some that I'm like, I think about, and I'm like, I don't think that works. And I think about it a little longer, and I'm like, wait, that works. And he did it again. What age?
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by...
Why don't I play the right one?
What the? What was he thinking?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Keep cool.
A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
Could Tennessee football be on the verge of becoming edge rusher U? All right. I want you to make... Jeremy Pruitt would once say, I want you to make your case, as this is something that struck me as a little bit insane-o, but now I'm beginning to think about it because of the U's. I would think quarterback U, wide receiver U. I wouldn't even have thought about edge rusher U, but make an argument, Caleb, because it's pretty strong.
Okay, so let's start with the precedent before I get to this era where it's really going to explode. The precedent is there because Doug Atkins was an edge rusher in the NFL, and Doug Atkins was the first great edge rusher. Is that fair to say? The first great one?
Yes.
Yes, so there's Doug Atkins. Reggie White wasn't an edge rusher, but he was a defensive end, which was a precursor to an edge rusher and was the best defensive end of all time. Leonard Little was probably the first. Would you say Leonard Little was the first true edge rusher that Tennessee had become a star in the NFL? Like not.
Yeah, let's define edge rusher for a second. And I don't want to bore you, but edge rusher is, they made up the term because you're lining up either directly over the tackle or you're lining up outside the tackle shoulder. So you're either lining up on the shoulder or outside the shoulder. So you can play with your hands down, your hand down, or your hand up. Okay, either way. So they used to do linebacker / defensive end.
And that's where they're different from an old defensive end, where defensive ends sometimes played inside the tackle and were so much as responsible as the tackles were for stopping the run. Is that fair to say?
Yes. So as far as a guy who you would say you can play with your hand up or hand down, it's your choice. I would say that yes, that Leonard Little is that guy. You're correct. You can go out there and say, Leonard, would you like to put your hand down today, or would you like to have your hand up? And it's his decision, and he can do whatever in the H he wants because he can go and rush the passer. And it is Leonard Little. Really, I thought he kind of revolutionized the position to some extent. So, yes, it is Leonard Little. Okay, so now moving forward, who are the great edge rushers that could make Tennessee edge rusher U?
So, in case you guys haven't noticed,
which just for the record is School Eru, edge rusher U. Welcome to Eru. All right, so make your argument.
So, and I don't know if you guys watched the playoffs over the weekend, but I think the Philadelphia Eagles really regret getting rid of Derek Barnett. I think they really regret getting rid of Derek Barnett. He had a sack and 2 hits on Joe Flacco over the weekend, and the Eagles couldn't get to Baker Mayfield. They got to him some yesterday, but they left way too many gaping holes in the secondary. And so I think they probably could have used Derek Barnett. Derek Barnett has the all-time record for sacks at Tennessee. Broke Reggie White's record. Did it in 3 years, by the way. Following Derek Barnett, Byron Young, a rookie from Tennessee, had 8 sacks this year with the Rams. And he's got a future stud career ahead of him. Tennessee right now may have the best edge rusher in college football in James Pierce Jr.
Fair.
Then there is the system that Tennessee runs. Mike Eckler coaching outside linebackers and Rodney Garner coaching defensive line. They both coach edge rushers. Rodney Garner's the recruiter. He's going to recruit edge rushers and scout the right players. Tim Banks, the defensive scheme he runs, guys, Tennessee is designed as an offense, as a defense to complement the offense. Dave, how do you complement an offense that gets you big leads? You unleash the pass rush and you make sure you don't give up the big play over the top. Exactly how the Colts were designed under Peyton Manning, right? When they had Dwight Freeney and Robert Mathis.
Yes.
So based on that, they're going to build their defense around their edge rushers as long as Josh Heupel's there for the foreseeable future. Meaning you're going to have a lot of edge rushers wanting to commit to Tennessee and wanting to play. And you're going to have Rodney Garner and Mike Eckler turn them into stars. So as long as Josh Heupel's at Tennessee, they're just scratching the surface of future edge rushers that are going to be superstars.
Okay. One fly in the ointment is an edge rusher. Does he want to learn how to play with a motor that can go 80 to 90 plays a game? Okay, I think every prospect looks at Tennessee, a defensive prospect, and that's what they're being recruited against. They're being told by other coaches, you're going to be fatigued. You're not going to be able to make plays. But I'll offset that by Tennessee should have the lead, and you should be able to come at people as quickly as possible and think about rushing the passer. Here's why I think Caleb's onto something, but I think there is a bit of a time limit. And I'll tell you why. Brought to you by Don Self. Customer service still matters. DonSelf.net. Over 40 years of experience right there. Built their business and reputation on taking care of your customers in College, Dale, Ottawa, and the greater Chattanooga area. DonSelf.net. DonSelf.net. Or call 423-396-2126. 423-396-2126. It's Rodney Garner. I mean, Rodney Garner walks into a room in recruiting. First of all, he gets into the rooms, which the high school coaches are oftentimes in charge of. He gets into the rooms, first of all, and he says, look at what I've done over my career. I have done quite a bit, and I have made some good players, elite players. I've made some elite players better. My question is, how long is that window open? Because Garner was born in 66. That would make him, that would make him
58.
58.
Or 57.
Okay.
58 when the season starts.
Okay. Well, it's June 30th. So, yeah. So he'll be 58 this upcoming year. So, I mean, my question is, how much longer does he want to do it? Because his job, believe it or not, is much tougher than any of Tennessee's coordinators, than Josh Heupel's job, because he has to recruit like the Dickens. At some point, that's going to wear on you. So I don't want to sidestep your question, but I think Tennessee has a window in which they can be edge rusher you. I just don't know that they can be edge rusher you forever with Garner being at his age. If he was 48, I think we'd be having a way different conversation, because he either hasn't had the chance or hasn't had the desire to be a head coach and move up in the coaching ranks. So if that's the case, then Tennessee's got just a plum sitting right there as one of its assistant coaches. I just don't know how much longer he wants to coach.
Well, you bring up the great point, and I'm not saying, I never want this for anybody, but this is just the fact with Rodney Garner at his age. He's not going to become a head coach, probably. That just doesn't seem very likely to happen.
Right.
for Rodney Garner, if you're a career assistant, and you know this, Rodney Garner started when assistants like you talk about, Dave, were making what, 40,000-50,000 a year, maybe? And
Probably around 70, 80. Yeah.
okay, 70, 80. Here's the thing: as long as Tennessee pays to keep him, Rodney Garner, I'm sure he's fine. He's probably good for life. He's made good money as an assistant. But given the fact that he's been a career assistant, if he retires now as opposed to 65 or 68 when he can collect Social Security, well, that's a lifestyle difference in money, right? That difference, it's not like Josh Heupel, whereas if Josh Heupel walked away tomorrow, he's good. He's golden for his money. Like for Gardner and for career assistants, that 7 years of not working, that is a lifestyle change in money for when you want to retire. So I think Gardner, because he's a career assistant, is in this thing at least until he's 65 to be able to get on Social Security and Medicare, and maybe 68. And
well, 7-year window is pretty good. I mean,
a 7-year window is pretty good.
Yeah,
Tennessee became wide receiver for you in a 7-year window.
In coaching, that's basically eternity.
Exactly.
So that would work. Travis brought up Paris Harrelson and Robert Ayers too. There are a lot of guys that you can point to.
All after Leonard Little, but yeah.
Right. But after what you said, the thing that sticks out the most is Banks's defensive scheme. I think you're going to have some guys who are able to create pressure. Oftentimes, Tennessee will have the lead and get in. I don't want to call them junk sacks. That sounds weird. But if you have the ability to don't worry about the run for 70 of 80 plays, surely you're going to have a few more sacks than the guy down the road who has to worry about the run for 80 plays, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that's why it's, even if the defense gives up a lot of points, if you're an edge rusher, you have a chance to really raise your profile just by racking up sacks all the time because they're going to have to throw it all the time, provided that Josh Heupel gets the lead. And we know how you feel about Joe Milton this past year. Don't you think with Nico, he's going to be getting Tennessee a lot of early leads next year?
Yes. I hate how you say that. We all know how you feel about Joe Milton. I was right, though.
No, wait, here's the question. Okay,
here's one thing if I was wrong.
All right, I'm going to go here, Dave. I'm talking myself into this. But you and I both know how the offense is constructed in Tim Big's scheme and Rodney Garner's there. We both agree that Josh Heupel is going to, with Nico, spot Tennessee a bunch of leads next year. Is there a chance that James Pierce breaks Reggie White's sack record next year with that for single season? Gets 16 sacks in a year? I mean, there's going to be so many times where they have to throw it a lot next year on Tennessee's defense, won't there?
Oh, man. 16's a lot. But he's got extra games, theoretically, right?
He's got extra games, and also they throw it a lot more than they did in 1983.
Yeah. Travis says kind of like Green Bay's defense after the first 5 minutes. They knew Dallas wasn't running. I hope everybody's having a good time because I had my son was in town from college. We had made a roast. I may share a picture here in a second of my wife wearing that Des Bryant jersey that somebody gave me. I have the Des Bryant jersey. It's signed on the back, Des Bryant, but it says 88 on the front, so you think it's Michael Irvin, right?
You know, if Des Bryant wasn't so y'all would have gone. Y'all might have had a Super Bowl run if Des Bryant didn't try to selfishly stretch out for a touchdown, and because of that, he dropped the ball.
Okay, that should have been a touchdown. But anyway. All right, so
if Des Bryant was like, I don't want to win. I want to get the touchdown myself. I'm not happy unless I'm scoring the touchdown. So he reached out when he should have just gone down with the ball. And then it would have been
so rank the top. I know what you're going to say, I think, but rank the top 3 positions that Tennessee will have success in under Josh Heupel in the foreseeable future.
Oh, well, 2 is very easy. 2 of them are very easy. Wide receiver and edge rusher are 1 and 2. I'll go quarterback number 3 because, by the way, I don't know if you guys know this.
You would be quarterback 3? Quarterback's 1.
Just because, well, they'll have success in college, but will that translate to the NFL with Josh Heupel? Receiver and edge rusher, they're going to become – Tennessee's going to be a factory for NFL stars at receiver and edge rusher.
Okay, I was just factoring in what they did in college. Okay, I see.
Quarterback's number 1.
If it's just college, I would go quarterback, receiver, edge rusher. If you want to talk about just the numbers alone, I would say what they do in college, it's receiver, edge rusher, quarterback, just for the numbers.
Yes, I agree with you guys on that. By the way, randomly, since we're talking about him, Josh Heupel was the one who scouted Jordan Love coming out of high school. Maybe I missed on his talent evaluation. When he was at Utah State, he was the one who wanted Jordan Love really badly. and he got him.
I didn't know that. Well, he's getting.
Yeah.
It must be nice just to have a run of great quarterbacks for over half of a century, as basically what Green Bay may be on the verge of. But anyway, and they got rid of that malcontent Aaron Rodgers, who still doesn't come back from his Achilles. He teased us about. But anyway.
But Dave, I was really shocked Quincy Carter didn't work out because he played for one of the greatest coaches ever in Jim Donnan. Jim Donnan did such a good job developing him.
Was he recruited by Drunken Ray Goff? Just stop it. Stop it. Rob says, mark this date. Caleb will come back to the show when the 16th sack happens next year. Well, he's always going to be on the show. So if that's the case,
Rob, I don't rub it in when I'm right. I never do that.
Yes, you do. James Pierce, how many sacks did Pierce have last year?
How many did he have last year? I'm going to pull that up real quick, but I don't think it was. Again, this whole thing is based on Tennessee getting a lead, but he had 10 sacks this past year. He had 10.
A quiet 10 sacks. So yeah,
and that is
okay. So let's say right now, if you had to take it, you had to bet a mortgage. Does he beat Reggie White's sack total this year?
No, not if I had to bet a mortgage. But if there were good odds, if it's like a plus 200, I'd do it.
Interesting. I'm going to go. I think he does it this year with the extra games. And there's better players around.
College football playoff. You are right. Does he do it in the regular season? Let's play that one. Does he do it in the regular season?
I'm not doing that. And there's and also don't forget there's more talent around him, even with the loss of Tyler Barron. So I think that Tennessee and James Pierce. I think they're going to have to lead a lot more because I don't like Joe Milton. I think they're going to have to lead a lot more, but I think that he is also going to be able to platoon a little bit. Tim Banks is. Hit that like and subscribe button. I tell you what, another crazy Caleb thought is Reggie Bush and why he seemingly takes a shot at Nick Saban and in turn takes a shot at all of college football. Hang tight, he's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, Off the Hook Sports.
Sun, sand, and salt water, the beach is a very relaxing place. Unless you wear contacts. Ow! Open your eyes to the best the beach has to offer with LASIK vision correction from Campbell Cunningham Laser Center.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Have you seen the latest TriStar Hats Co. product?
TriStar Hats Co. What's that?
You know, those really cool hats, shirts, tumblers, and even license plates with 3 stars like the official Tennessee flag and stripes like the American flag. Pretty patriotic if you ask me.
Gotcha. Seen those. Those are cool. Where can I get them?
Simple. TriStarHatsCo.com. And if you order now, there's 10% on any order $50 or more. Plus, use the promo code HOOKED.
With the promo code HOOKED, you get 10% off. That's hooked.
And don't forget free shipping with any order over $50. Stock up at TriStarHatsCo.com. That's TriStarHatsCo.com. There are plenty of wannabes out there, so make sure you go to TriStarHatsCo.com for the best quality and customer service.
Will do, and I'll be sure to use the promo code HOOKED. That's hooked when I do to save an additional 10% off. TriStarHatsCo.com.
TriStar Hats Co. is a trademark of TriStar Hats Co. LLC. Any use without express written consent is prohibited.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
You're listening to The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
The internet is full of pictures of each and every one of you.
Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free.
Is there nothing you people can't do?
Also available on OffTheHookSports.com.
All right, let me tell you something, a quick fact right now about the Derek Dooleys of the world, about the Butch Joneses of the world that would brag about a top 25 class, that would brag about a top 10 class, that thought that was good enough. Well, it's not. And there's a baseline. We use the term floor a lot in the NFL draft of Tennessee football and how they can recruit because of what they have. In other words, I'll just look at the message board now. In other words, Rob, Travis, Jerry, you guys could have success at Tennessee to some extent. And to some extent, may mean a top 25 class, it may mean a top 40 class. Tennessee is the 6th most watched college football team in the nation. So there is an inherent value there that a lot of schools don't have. You had the question, does the NCAA or college football need Tennessee to be good? And I say absolutely yes. Need or want, we could debate that word. But yes, Tennessee, and it's obvious with what you guys, the fans, did, and showing up for game after game after game, and some games that were not that meaningful last season. Yeah. And I think Kirk Herbstreit has said it. When Tennessee's better, college football is better. I think it's one of those 15 or so programs when they're better, Tennessee's that college football is better, Caleb. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But I was surprised to see them 6th most watched. That seemed pretty high to me.
Yes, and so to bring up the stats, Alabama was the most watched team, and then Ohio State was 2nd. Colorado was 3rd, but that's the Deion saga. And Georgia was 4th, and Michigan was 5th. Michigan won the national title. Michigan and Alabama played in the most watched college football playoff game ever. Ohio State and Georgia were in the national title run until the last week of the regular season or the conference championship week when they each both lost their first game. Colorado had Deion Sanders. All of those were splash stories. Tennessee was a 9-14. So it was weird for them to be 6th. Now, this is, guys, I got to tell you, this is why Dave and I are so excited for covering Tennessee next year. Because college football, as we have talked about, and as I've often quoted Shannon Terry saying this, the guy who founded Rivals at 247 Sports and On 3, saying that college football is in the 2nd inning of a rocket ship about to launch to space because of the 12-team playoff. Tennessee, just by sheer numbers, if you do it relative to storyline, Tennessee has the most passionate, wanting to watch fans in the country. There's a third layer to this, though. Not only do they have that passion, Dave, this isn't like the 90s. Tennessee also has probably one of the most fun brands of football to watch right now, don't they?
I think that's a factor. Yes, I do.
Yeah, they have one of the most fun brands. They have a quarterback coming in next year who is going to probably be able to light it up in that fun brand. I don't see how, if Tennessee, I think college football will be great next year overall and will generate ratings. I think it goes to another stratosphere if Tennessee's in the playoff hunt, though, with Nico Iamaleava. I think it reaches numbers that they never thought they would reach, because I think Nico is going to be, I'm just going to say it, he's going to be the most fun quarterback to watch next year in all of college football. Whether or not he wins the Heisman, he'll be the most fun one to watch.
Yeah, I would probably say that, partly because you have a coach that maybe is too overly aggressive on 4th downs, but I don't want to get into that discussion with you. But no, there was a lot of preseason hype because Joe Milton could throw an orange 105 yards. Okay. And there was a lot of preseason hype because he was supposed to step in and be a more talented Hendon Hooker. Well, you and I knew that there were questions there, but let me tell you, there is going to be a lot of hype, maybe a little bit more subdued preseason because people got a little bit burned by Joe Milton. But among the national media, there is going to be all kinds of conversation about who? Iamaleava. So I think you're going to have similar hype. So you talked about the hype train with Deion Sanders. There was a hype train with Tennessee football last year But I think the hype train is more sustainable with Tennessee than it is with Deion Sanders. We don't know what Deion Sanders is going to do. We don't know if Deion Sanders gets bored. Tennessee, on the other hand, has a coach that seemingly wants to be here. And I would tell you guys, if I didn't think that was the case, if I heard behind the scenes, I don't think he hasn't looked around. He doesn't seem like an NFL coach to me. He doesn't seem like he wants to go to another school. So it is much more sustainable, that wow factor, than it is with Deion Sanders. As far as those other schools, again, you're talking about the nation's elite. I mean, Tennessee is right up there in terms of viewership with the best programs in the nation. That says a lot. That means a lot. And it does help you, like we just talked about, the exposure in recruiting, Caleb.
It does. It helps you hugely in recruiting. And again, like I told you guys, it helps us when we're covering Tennessee and they're that good, because when they're that good and it's aligning with college football about to take off, it's kind of the perfect storm of things happening. So again, you're going to see a very exciting football team next year. Look, this Tennessee team was this past year. It didn't help that for a Josh Heupel offense, this team was not fun to watch at all. I mean, half their
they changed the offense from going downfield to screen passes because they didn't trust Joe Milton to hit some things over the middle, and they didn't his deep ball wasn't accurate enough. No, you're right. It was a totally different offense.
Yeah. And you're not going to see that next year with Tennessee and Nico. I mean, I've been high on him from the start, and I'm still high on him. And here's the other part of this. You know, I used to say this about Steve Spurrier, Dave, and now I say this about Josh Heupel. This is another similarity they have. Did you ever felt like Spurrier coached a game like you were playing Madden?
How so?
You know, you kind of got a little impatient with Madden sometimes. You wanted to rack up your stats a little bit every now and then when you were playing. You may not have punted as much as you would if you were coaching in a real game.
Yeah, I mean, I was probably like you. I went for it on fourth down a lot because I was young and naive. But
I think Josh Heupel coaches somewhat like he's playing Madden. Like, to him, play calling and coaching a game is the fun part. It's like being a Madden player, isn't it? For him?
Oh, I would hope not.
I think that's how he approaches it.
Strain on your defense. We're talking about real people. This isn't a video.
No, he's not exactly like that. But I think you're the one who told me he looks at the stat sheet. He wants stats. He wants the numbers.
I do believe he wants the numbers. I believe that is a factor. I do believe he learned as a coach. I believe Josh Heupel is going to be a significantly better coach in 2024. You're going to disagree with this than he was in 2023, because I've been told by several people that he said behind closed doors that he did not want to, that he learned from his mistakes in Alabama. He wouldn't go for it with the lead on his own side of the field. Now, I know you disagree with that. But that is the common belief, and it's one in which I believe in. So he's made himself better as a coach. So, yeah, I think that Tennessee's offense will be exciting, but they don't have to go for it on fourth down at their own end. Nearly.
They're not going to be on fourth down on their own end that much. They're going to be throwing it all over the field. So that's the one big difference. So this isn't anything to worry about, guys. So here's a question, Dave. What are the chances Tennessee's the most watched team in college football next year? I think there's a very good chance they're the most.
What was the top five again? But ahead of Tennessee, Tennessee was sixth.
Alabama, Ohio State, Colorado, Georgia, and Michigan.
Hold on, let's take it one at a time. Alabama, I'm going to say drops significantly, so I'll put Tennessee above them. Viewership only is what we're talking about on the field. What else?
Ohio State.
I'll say Ohio State still wins.
No, it's Tennessee. It's going to be Tennessee.
Okay. All right. Who's third?
Colorado.
No, they won't be. That's gone. That's done. I mean, unless they get really relevant again, where they're winning 9 and 10 games and pushing for the 12-team playoff. That was a neat show.
Georgia.
I will still say Georgia is above Tennessee because I think they're a better program right at the second.
Michigan.
Michigan, I think Harbaugh leaves, so no. So I would
So
have.
you got Tennessee third behind Ohio State and Georgia.
Yeah, and Hunter and I are on the same page. He said they can jump Bama and Colorado, but Georgia and Ohio State will still stay above. I totally agree with that. Hunter and I
You're
are on the
basing
same
this,
page.
but you are only basing this on who you think is going to be better than Tennessee next year. But you have to add the factor of if Tennessee gets better, then their viewership could explode. Like, does an 11? Here's the question: don't you think a 10-win Tennessee draws more viewers than a 12-win Georgia?
No,
you don't.
No, I don't. Now, if you said a team that goes into November undefeated in Tennessee and has a chance to get a first round bye and they're that exciting, then I think you've got a strong argument. But as long as Georgia is still winning double-digit games in the regular season, making the college football playoff, I think people are going to go out of their way to watch them. Now, let's not mistake Atlanta for a Georgia town, but that is a big metro. It's not, but it is a big metro area, and they will jump on a bandwagon of anything. And right now, you see more Georgia stuff around Atlanta than I ever have before. So I think there are a lot of people that will jump off the bandwagon, but hey, yeah, let's get together and have a few beers and get the wives together and then cook and let's watch the Georgia game because they're relevant.
Does that change if, as we saw 2 days ago, Bill Belichick was interviewing with the Falcons? Does that change if Bill Belichick's at the Falcons this year?
You know, it's funny you bring that up. I know people that run 2 radio stations in Atlanta, and there's one that says they want to be all pro, and there's another one that says they want to be mostly college. So I would give you this, the ratings between the two, the college one wins. So I can't 100% answer if it's a Belichick. I mean, that's a splash higher. But right now, the thinking is, and the station that's winning is college football and college.
But see, I would debate, and this is going to be the hottest take I'm going to say. There's a very good chance Tennessee has as large of a presence in Atlanta as Georgia.
As Georgia, no, but there'll be a significant second. It's the biggest booster base outside of the state of Tennessee.
Because I think Tennessee among SEC schools, all schools equal, I think, forget market size, things like that. I think Tennessee has the largest number of fans of any school in the SEC. In just terms of raw, like loyal, hardcore fans, the largest number of devoted fans that will watch no matter what. I think Tennessee wins on that. And anybody who has been on Vol Twitter for the past 10 years will attest to that. Because again, y'all can say what you want to say about Eric Ainge and Dave. I know you have your thoughts, but and I know they were trying to prove a point, but he wasn't lying about Sanford Stadium. They're not that raucous usually. If you go to that stadium, they're
especially before they closed the end in, which is the time that he was referring to. Apex Apparel Group, design, brand, market your way. All kinds of products. Go to apexapparelgroup.com or just call Tyler at 865-919-3001, 865-919-3001. Support our sponsors. That's why we're here. And Tyler can take care of cups, shirts, whatever you need. He is fantastic. Again, Apex Apparel Group. And then you have Reggie Bush, who, for goodness gracious, and as long as Reggie Bush walks the face of the earth, he is going to say something about players getting paid. I'm surprised he didn't say something about Jeremy Pruitt. Maybe he did. But his thoughts on, because Reggie Bush got a house and his parents were able to stay there during his time at Southern California, which at the time was a NCAA violation. But his thoughts on Nick Saban, he says NIL ran him away. He has no more control over 5-star recruits. The playing field is level, and he can't handle that. I think that's the most asinine statement I've heard in a long, long time.
It's a statement that comes from a casual, as Josh Pate would say, who hears the talking about college football, but doesn't actually dive into what's happening in the sport. Reggie Bush thought he was making an intelligent comment. You ever been around somebody, Dave, who they to keep up with you in a conversation, they want to pretend like they know what you're talking about, and so they say something it's just so asinine and stupid because they say something that they may heard in passing on a surface level but never dove into it?
No, absolutely.
That's what this was. If Reggie Bush knew a lick about college football or covered it at all right now, he would realize this is one of the stupidest things he's ever said. Because anybody who's actually followed Nick Saban the past few years knows that there's a difference between Nick Saban not liking something and Nick Saban running from something because he doesn't like it. Nick Saban has never run from something even if he didn't like it. He has adapted to change after change after change, and he adapted to the NIL change. He played for the national title in an era of the NIL and the transfer portal. That's not why he's leaving, guys.
He rope-a-dopes the change. He fights it, but he takes the beating, and then he comes out and wins. And I think that he would have won NIL because money's there had he needed to, but he didn't need to because he could use the old John Calipari thing as tripping over nickels to get to millions. But it does make me wonder this. When you talk about a perfect coach, is a perfect coach a great scheme guy? Is he a great recruiter? Or is he great at NIL? Brought to you by the Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards to ensure you only receive the best in CBD or Delta products. Go to Hemp House Chat with 2 T's, Hemp House Chat with 2 T's.com. So you're asking coaches to do something that's way outside of their comfort zone. You're asking them to handle money, and you have X amount to spend on these guys. Oh, it makes me wonder, would you rather have someone that is fantastic at NIL management, or would you rather have someone that is a great scheme coach or is a great recruiter? Where would you rank that among the most important things that a college coach can bring to the table?
Well, okay, so scheme to me is always more important than being a recruiter, because I've always said that I think the school recruits itself more than the coach recruits for the school. And I've got mountains of data to prove that, Dave. I don't think you can point to an example of the opposite, honestly, where a coach recruited a school above its level of what it could recruit. There's no answer. There's no evidence of that whatsoever. I think the school
recruiting above its level. What exactly do you mean by that?
I mean, its infrastructure dictates that it could only get a top 20 class, but instead they got a top 5 class. I've never seen that happen, ever. And so I think, and when I say infrastructure, I'm not just talking about the infrastructure of that school. I'm talking about the infrastructure of the surrounding school. So if someone's going to bring up Clemson, that Clemson's gotten top 5 classes. Yes, but the infrastructure has allowed it to get top 5 classes relative to other schools that have had their recruiting issues over the past 10, 15 years, most notably Tennessee. My evidence is that there's like an Overton circle for every school of about 5 to 10 spots of where you can recruit, and the coach can only get you within those 10 spots, but they can't do any more than that. Do you see what I'm saying on that?
Yes, I didn't know what an Overton circle was at the time, but I think I figured it out.
Overton window. I should have said Overton window. Excuse me.
Gotcha.
So
I don't even know what an Overton window is either. But
basically, a school has a max and a minimum that they can get in recruiting, no matter who's the head coach, and it's usually about a 10 to 15 spot range.
Yeah, Tennessee's is basically a 150-mile radius, as the crow flies, not in a car, okay? 150-mile radius around Knoxville. That includes the Carolinas, that includes Atlanta, that includes Nashville. That's where they have to own. Forget about the fact that Memphis is in the state. Worry about that. Your state is that 150-mile window, which bleeds over into other states, which I think is kind of what your job.
And what I mean is also the range. Tennessee at max could have a number 1 class. Is it safe to say Tennessee could have a number 1 class?
Yes.
At max. At minimum, they get a 15 class. There's no range greater than that, honestly. The range is always about 15 spots of any coach, no matter the coach. The range is about 15 spots for a school. It's 10 to 15 spots. And that's why I say there's an Overton window. So I always devalue recruiting, because I think recruiting is so much more about the school than it is the coach. And I've always felt it's more about the school than the coach, the more I've covered it and followed it.
I agree with that. Now, there's something about being a grinder in recruiting. I think you would agree with that. You can't have Derek Dooley who doesn't make the trip to see Von Bell.
Recruiting with that. Actually, I was going to get to that, funny enough. Recruiting is not about the ability to sell. It's about the work ethic, really. You just either, you have a base level, like Nick Saban. he's not a good salesperson. Nick Saban cannot sell anything. But it's because he works his butt off in recruiting. That's why he was so good for so long. Fulmer, I will give you, was a grinder on the recruiting trail, wasn't he? I mean, he analyzed every single person that he wanted to go after. And so there's a base level. So you can tell if someone has that or doesn't, to be fair. Scheme is still more important than managing NIL because I think with managing NIL, I think that's up to the coach's ability to evaluate talent more than anything. And I think that I don't think the coach can manage NIL that much. I think this is actually where I would agree with Reggie Bush if he said it right. I could see him saying that Nick Saban was upset that he couldn't control the NIL boosters a little more than he wanted to. Not to corral them more money to recruit. I could see Nick Saban being upset about that. But the idea that he's opposed to NIL and opposed to being able to run a dictatorship on his own, that's stupid. And to be fair, Bush did not say those exact words. I'm going to pull it up again. But what he said was, his quote was, that was so the ridiculous part of, he has no more control over 5-star recruits. What? Like, Nick Saban, that's not why he left, was the control over 5-star recruits.
It's not like they're multimillionaires in the NFL, which I think is what he's driving at, right? Like, multimillionaires in the NFL make more than the coach. So they're going to say, stick it. I'll do what I want to, or I'll go to another team. You don't have that sort of leverage in college football. You don't at all. And the idea that Saban left over that is stupid. If anything, again, if you want to say NIL, I would say he left. And I do think this, Dave. I think Saban retired. I believe him when he said there's no health issue, which he said last week on Reese Davis's interview. I think Nick Saban, after the transfer portal closed, realized that Alabama boosters were not going to cobble up the money necessary for NIL for him to recruit and be competitive. And I think that's what this comes down to, is he couldn't cobble enough money to recruit on the level that he wants to recruit, which doesn't suggest control over players. That suggests I want more money to be able to pay my players more, honestly. And he's been begging them for that, and he can't get it. So Hunter asked the question, does Josh Heupel have that quality with recruiting? Recruiting is a lot more than sitting down on somebody's couch and giving them a recruiting pitch. So I answer the question with this, Hunter. Yes, he does, for two reasons. One, Tennessee has significant NIL, but the other is the culture around Tennessee's football program. Caleb, it's significant. Prospects show up on campus and they feel that. And it's a big deal. And listen, players are honest with each other. Do you think players honestly went to a fellow prospect, a 17-year-old, and said, Butch Jones has my best interest at heart. I love this guy? No, they didn't do that. No. Do they do that with Josh Heupel? There's no doubt in my mind that they do that with Josh Heupel.
No, you are right about that. And as a matter of fact, there's a reason Butch Jones got 2 top 5 classes and then never got a top 10 one after that. Mm-hmm. And
sounded good on the front end, but on the back end, players are saying, this dude's nuts.
Yeah, that's exactly what was happening.
I mean, look at his haircut. For the love of God, look at his haircut. How can he not be nuts? They didn't say that.
By the way, Dave, I just had a mind blow moment. And I know it's a crazy mind blow, but this explains to me, how many times have you covered new coaches at a school and they always make a splash with 2 good recruiting classes to start out and everybody's excited about them? And I'm like, how do they always recruit so well at the start and then flame out? I'm like, oh, there's not enough players who can talk negatively about how bad they are yet.
Yeah.
And
you pay the assistant coaches to tell the prospects that everything's okay. You're not going to pay these kids. These kids are young and they're noble for the most part, and they're going to tell the absolute truth. And most of your players out of 85 are not particularly happy. So you've got to try to make them all somewhat happy, because, one guy's a freshman. He's just getting in. He's 40 pounds underweight, and he's getting the hell beat out of him in practice because he's on the scout team. Most of them are not happy, but Tennessee has a culture right now where guys are happy, and it's across the board. And it was more business-like at Alabama, might be that way at Georgia, but there's more than one way to skin a cat. I think Philip Fulmer had a good culture. I think Mac Brown had a good culture. I think there are other guys that have won recruiting and won championships with culture. And along with NIL, yes, I think that makes Josh Heupel a very strong recruiter.
Well, and there's the other part of this too, which is when you talk about players talking, it's one thing for former players to talk bad about a program. I think every coach has had former players talk bad about him publicly, hasn't they? Every single one has had former players. Most of the time, you can explain it away with sour grapes or being upset. I believe, was it Anthony Herrera or Anthony Sessions that just lit into Philip Fulmer one time? It was like in 2008, like years after he had left, and he talked about how
I don't remember that.
Oh yeah, it was
I would think Sessions on the defensive side, because they really loved John Chavis and didn't have as much interaction with Philip Fulmer. But I don't know.
Well, somebody
Herrera being an offensive lineman, I know he wasn't really happy with his amount of playing time at the time. I don't know.
Yeah, so there was a former player, but there have been former players that have trashed programs. Where it stood out with Butch Jones is you can usually explain it by like they're sour grapes, they're upset they didn't get here, they are upset they didn't get this, they didn't get to play, and that's what they're mad about. You didn't get that with Butch Jones. You got former stars coming out trashing him. I mean, you have Alvin Kamara, who I'm not saying is the highest character guy, don't get me wrong, but you do have Alvin Kamara lamenting how he was misused by Butch Jones when he was there. And when stuff like that happens, you're right, then it starts to be a red flag. You haven't seen any of that with Josh Heupel. I mean, you won't even see Jeremy Banks come out and trash Josh Heupel right now because, I mean, you know, and you would think the sour grapes Jeremy Banks would do that. You haven't seen any of that. And I think that has a lot to do with, I think players are starting to respect Heupel. I think with Fulmer, I don't think former players were trashing Fulmer. I think former coaches and former scouts and former people like that started to fall out of favor with Fulmer that hurt him with recruits. Because I think what the story you told me stands out. The story that Fulmer sandbagged Jason Witten when he was trying to get his NFL draft stock, I think that wrecked him in recruiting long term.
I think it hurt him across the board within his own team as well. So let's get to our 5 favorite minutes. We close out the show with your comments. We want to get your thoughts. What would you like to talk about? Because we appreciate you. We remind you, support our sponsors. They're right below. That's why we're here. We greatly appreciate that. And today's our 5 favorite minutes brought to you by Dynasty Pools and Spas showroom in Athens. Just mention Off the Hook. That's Off the Hook. Get $500 off. And yes, they do deliver. This is a great time of year to have a hot tub. Okay, so Travis says if we have another 4-loss season, it will absolutely kill our recruiting. We can't afford to lose more than 2 this year. Hunter says another 10-win season and play from Josh Heupel players in the NFL should finally get us in the top 5 class conversation. So what's the difference between 10 wins and 8 wins in recruiting? I'll ask you on the message board. Give us your thoughts. Is it a big deal? Is it a deal? Or is it no deal? I will say 8 again. If they go 8 with Nico, they win 8 with, I think, a favorable schedule. I will use the word and kill. I think it would kill recruiting. I think 10 would take Tennessee to another level in recruiting, which right now they're battling to get inside the top 10. I think they would be inside the top 10 moving forward. And then you win a couple of college football playoff games, maybe better than that. But I agree with both of our statements. I think 8 with both of the statements on the message board. I think it's a monster deal, big deal if it's 8. That's back-to-back 4 losses. If it's 10, I think it's a significant deal because it helps Tennessee. But in terms of recruiting, 8 would be – you would start to wonder if Josh Heupel's the answer, wouldn't you?
It's over if it's 8. He's not the answer if it's 8. I'll just say that out.
Even if he keeps the job a couple more years. I would tend to agree with that. But neither of us think that's going to happen, but I would tend to agree with that.
Yeah, that's dead man walking numbers is 8. 10 does not – so 8's more significant than 10 in the other way because 8 means he's dead man walking. 10 does not mean that he's totally secure, but it at least
not only mean job security, I mean just helping recruiting.
Yeah, but 10 will help him recruiting. 10 will help him recruit. I agree with that. But I think that 8 is just you can't have 8. I'll just to give you an example, Gus Malzahn went 12-2 at Auburn his first year, went to the national title game. He went 8-5 the year after that in 2014. That wrecked him. He was a dead man walking for like 7 years, Dave, when he was at Auburn after that because he couldn't maintain what he had built, quite honestly. And yeah, 8 would be look, I'll be honest with you. I think losing the Citrus Bowl this year, finishing 8-5, that could have been devastating. I mean, 9-4 looks a lot better than 8-5. And I know that's weird to say, but The Citrus Bowl.
Devastating would be a little bit too strong for me. I would think it would be very, very significant.
It would.
So Hunter says another 8-win season groups you in with Kentucky and South Carolina. So that's right. Hit that like and subscribe button. If you haven't subscribed yet, do so. Please turn your notifications on as well. Again, hit the like button. Go ahead and hit that right now before you cruise out. For Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker. This has been a presentation